and also to begin our live broadcast. Oh, I forgot about my two-factor authentication. This is, of course, for my protection, so I'm going to respond expeditiously. I believe I'm going to respond expeditiously. And again, I thank you for your punctuality and your indulgence. I'm awaiting for a 6-digit code that will allow me to move forward. Okay.
What does this code do, Malcolm?
It's called a two-factor authentication.
Oh.
And it's supposed to send me a text message with a code that allows me to get on. But so far, it has not sent me the code. So we're going to try to use another method for getting that accomplished. Okay. So what I'm going to attempt to do, and again, thank you for your indulgence. It's good to see you, Rabbi Strauss. I understand our Islamic leader is attempting to get on, but we've not received a communications from him yet.
The invite didn't allow you to get in. It was the email that you sent last Thursday. You may want to re-forward that.
That's interesting. So what happened when you tried to get in?
There was no, it just said go to Facebook Live. There wasn't the Zoom link. The Zoom link was sent out last Thursday. It wasn't embedded in the invite.
Oh boy, all right.
At least it was not embedded in my calendar invite.
Okay. I need to log on Facebook from here. So again, thank you for your indulgence. Once again, it promises me I'm not getting the code, so I'm not sure where the code is going. Let me try. I'm trying on my iPad now. So thank you again for your patience. For reasons that I'm not able to substantiate, my laptop is not allowing me to log on to Facebook. I'm logged on my iPad, but I'm not logged on for my laptop, and I'm not sure why that is. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to proceed. And let's see if it's come yet. Okay. I'd like to proceed, and while after I finish speaking, I'll go back to attempting to get us on Facebook and determine what the problem is. Okay? And so good afternoon. I am Dr. Malcolm Byrd. I'm the CEO of the Philadelphia Forum for Faith, Law, and Civics, otherwise known as Forum Philly. I welcome you on behalf of Forum Philly and the participating trusted leaders of the 15 collaborating religious, judicatory, and professional clergy organizations representing hundreds of congregations in and around the city of Philadelphia, all of whom you will hear from shortly. As we partner with the Philadelphia City Commissioner's Office, led by Chairwoman Lisa Dealey, Vice Chairman Al Smith, and Member Commissioner Omar Sabir, as they partner to convene this second Philadelphia Faith Leaders Election Roundtable. And we thank all of our faith leaders and commissioners for generously dedicating their time to this roundtable. Today's roundtable is designed to provide clergy who educate voters with the most current, accurate, and official nonpartisan information from those exclusively and ultimately responsible, our election authorities for the city of Philadelphia, to provide participants and viewers the most dependable information for voting during this election cycle, our city commissioners. All of us appreciate that Philadelphia voters are preparing for a very significant election on May the 18th. And as faith leaders, we recognize our moral and civic responsibility to facilitate through nonpartisan education, voter education, and helping them to make an informed exercise of their constitutional rights and duties to vote. We have a distinguished panel of collaborating religious leaders with us today who will facilitate questions from for our city commissioners. And I want to introduce those commissioners shortly. But before we do that, we wanted to set aside some time for sacred reflection and prayer and meditation. And we'd like to begin that with the Right Reverend Patricia Ann Curtis Davenport, who is the Bishop of the Southeastern Pennsylvania Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, followed by Amir Abdul Asim Rashid of the Majlis Ashura of Philadelphia and the Delaware Valley, and then concluding this segment with reflections and spiritual meditation from Rabbi David Levin, representing the Board of Rabbis of Greater Philadelphia. This period will be followed by the roundtable rationale and purpose of statement presented by the Reverend Dr. Clarence Wright, who is the president of the Pennsylvania Progressive Baptist Alliance and the first vice president of the Baptist Pastors and Ministers Conference of Philadelphia and vicinity. And following President Wright, we will begin our conversation with our commissioners. Thank you again for joining us. I'm going to go off camera and attend to some technical matters, but thank you again, and I will return shortly.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners and Dr. Byrd, for this opportunity to gather again. Beloved colleagues, given the alarming number of voter suppression bills being introduced across our country to strategically impact African and Latinx Americans, as our opening thought, I'd like to share a few words from the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Shake us from our slumber, which is my prayer. Dr. King says, when our eyes do not see the gravity of racial justice, shake us from our slumber and open our eyes, O Lord. When out of fear we are frozen into inaction, give us a spirit of bravery, O Lord. When we try our best but say the wrong things, give us a spirit of humility, O Lord. When the chaos of this dies down, give us a lasting spirit of solidarity, O Lord. When it becomes easier to point fingers outward, help us to examine our own hearts, O Lord. God of truth, in your wisdom, enlighten us. God of hope, in your kindness, heal us. Creator of all people, in your generosity, guide us. Racism breaks your heart. Break our hearts for what breaks yours, O Lord. Ever-present God, you call us to be in relationship with one another and promise to dwell wherever 2 or 3 are gathered. In our community, we are many different people. We come from different places. We have many different cultures. Open our hearts that we may be bold in finding the riches of inclusion and the treasures of diversity among us. We pray in faith. I offer these words as a thought from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Rabbi Levin, would you proceed? Amir Rashid is having difficulty connecting, so I'm going to ask that you proceed, please.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Dr. Byrd. It's an honor to be with you again this year. And thank you, Bishop Davenport, for those important words. As part of my spiritual reflection, I wanted to share a little bit about where we are, because in the Jewish self-understanding, the Passover holiday that we've just celebrated is where we left the oppressor behind for freedom. And we are currently on the march towards the revelation of God's truth and law to be received at Mount Sinai that we celebrate with the holiday of Shavuot. Sinai was a milestone in our development, marking a moment in our history, a cohesion in the creation of our peoplehood. And Sinai was a new beginning to our journey. It was not the end. For we've learned that revelation did not free us from those who would continue to persecute us and to oppress us. For many reasons, be they political, religious, or ethnic, others have risen against us, viewing us as pariahs. Crusades and pogroms, expulsion after expulsion, a Holocaust that murdered 6 million, fully a third of our entire people. We understand persecution and the plight of others who struggle under the oppressor's knee. The horrors of the unique institution of American slavery and its harsh legacy of injustice, we cannot fully know. Still, we do understand and know pain and cruelty and suffering. Our DNA has this history written into it. And also, we know the promise of hope that America has represented. We know that for the most part, we have found success in American society. And we know that so many others have not. And we know, in the words of Dr. King, that none are truly free until all are free. Or as attorney Benjamin Crumb recently said, expanding on the eloquent words of Langston Hughes, let America be America for all Americans. Yesterday, Dr. Cornel West of the Union Theological Seminary appeared on the broadcast Morning Joe. He had just penned an op-ed that decried the elimination of the classics department at Howard University. Concerned that American civilization depends on knowing your roots and an understanding about the foundations of our civilization and how we find our authentic voices as we strive to be productive citizens. As important as it is for American society as a whole, how much more so is it for African American youth and our future leaders to fully make this knowledge their own? Dr. West shared beautifully and most touchingly the 4 pillars upon which civilization must stand. These things he learned from his recently deceased mother, Irene West, and they are truth and goodness and beauty and holiness. Truth, he claims, is found when the suffering can speak and be heard. Goodness is the pursuit of justice. Beauty is the dedication to elegance and to excellence. And holiness is our ability to love. And Dr. West, in his holiness, honors his mother's living spirit within him to work to continue to fulfill this dream. Dr. West's mother articulated what we all must strive to achieve, a society where these are indeed the central pillars. It is in that place that we will find redemption, but we will only get there together. Courageous enough to champion the cause, unwilling to settle for less, and keenly aware that these ideals belong to all of us. There is a long road ahead, and it begins with our next step. And I pledge to you to do my best as we travel this road together.
Thank you, Rabbi Levin, for those profound observations and how fitting they are for today's gathering and the work that we are doing. We are still having some difficulty in enabling the imam to access. We have sent him the code, so hopefully he will access soon. But what I'd like to do now is bring forward Dr. Clarence Wright and have him just to share, if you will, as to our rationale for our gathering today. And again, we do apologize for those who experienced technical difficulties with the invite. It certainly had the Zoom information attached to it, but technology has a way of getting beyond our reach sometimes. So we do apologize for any inconvenience it causes you as faith leaders and certainly our commissioners. Dr. Wright, please proceed.
Good afternoon, everyone. My task is to give the rationale for this gathering and gatherings like that, or like this one rather, and that is a relatively simple task. Our task as faith leaders is to provide care for the whole person. That is often summed up as care for the soul, but when we speak of care for the soul or spiritual care, that also includes daily concerns of life. And all of us, whatever branch of faith we're from, are tasked with the care of whole people, whole families, and whole communities. That includes, of course, the primary task of pointing people to God. But in my interpretation of Scripture and in my tradition, the way that we can connect to God is often by how we connect to each other and how we care for each other. So what that has to do with being civically engaged is that in forums like this, where we talk about elections and other concerns, this is an opportunity to tangibly address the concerns that affect each of our communities, whether those are Jewish communities, Baptist churches, Lutheran churches, masjids, or other Islamic communities, whatever the medium of gathering, we're all tasked with the same thing, which is the care of our people. So the last year, we have been working overtime as spiritual leaders to address the many issues, the multiple pandemics, as they are often called, which include COVID-19, which includes gun violence and other violence and rising homicide rates in the city of Philadelphia, which includes the economic conditions of our people, and so many other concerns. We've spent a lot of time addressing these concerns over the last year. The reason why a forum where we bring faith leaders together to talk about issues pertaining to the election, the reason why this is important is because elections are an opportunity to address everything that I just mentioned and more. If there are issues with violence, that can be addressed in those who we elect. If there are issues with police violence, that can be addressed with those who we elect. So in order to address those in a tangible way through the election process, which we have been through in a major way in the last year, it's important that we examine the integrity of this election process and make sure that we are confident in that process. There are many who have not been confident in the process for whatever reason, legitimate or illegitimate, many of which are not legitimate, but we still need to talk about these things so that we can all be on the same page and ultimately to get our people to go to the polls and exercise their right to vote. I am, as was mentioned, the president of the Pennsylvania Progressive Baptist Alliance. Bishop Davenport read a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King was one of our founders. One of the reasons why the Progressive National Baptist Convention was convened was to support the work of Dr. Martin Luther King, much of which included voter engagement and even passing laws that opened up voting for more people, specifically in that case for African-American people. Unfortunately, the Voting Rights Act that King worked so hard to pass was in recent years struck down, and we have almost immediately seen the results of that, not just in Georgia and some of these other places, but all over the country, including here. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to address any hint of voter suppression and do what we can to communicate this process to those who are in our spiritual care. So that is the rationale. And we're grateful for Dr. Byrd for convening this. We're grateful to all of the faith leaders who are here on this Zoom and those who may be more peripherally involved. And of course, we're grateful for the commissioners who have taken time out of their schedule to be here for this. They came last year before the major presidential election that we had in November. And as we saw, Philadelphia became the center of the election world in November, which showed how important it was for us to get together and make sure these processes are right. We have another election coming up, of course. It's not getting as much national or even local attention, but it is still extremely important. And we want to make sure that we're prepared ahead of this primary season coming not many days hence. So again, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Dr. Byrd, for having us.
Thank you again. Dr. Wright, you have so effectively spoken to a wonderful, our imam is now arriving. So we're going to give him an opportunity to kind of catch his breath. And then we will proceed again. We believe we have resolved the issues with Facebook now. So we're going to attempt to, okay. Okay, we appear to be logged on here. Amir Rashid.
Yes.
Wonderful. Want to apologize to you for any difficulties you experienced in getting on the call. We had some unanticipated technical difficulties. We are glad you are here, sir. And are you able to share with us that spiritual meditation or reflection, sir?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you.
I don't know, my picture's not coming up. I don't.
Well, hopefully it will come up shortly. We've had some technical difficulties with respect to our technology, but we do appreciate your indulgence as we attempt to proceed.
Okay. Well, I would like to recite the verse of the Holy Quran where it begins with, praise be to God, Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Thee alone do we worship, and thine aid do we seek. Show us the straight path, the path upon whom you have bestowed your grace. Not the path of those who have gone astray, nor those who are cursed. Amen.
Amen. Again, Amir, we thank you for your diligence in endeavoring to join us this afternoon for this election roundtable for Philadelphia. And joining us this afternoon again are Commissioners Lisa Deely and Commissioner Omar Severe. I have received notice that Commissioner Smith will not be able to be with us this afternoon. So we'd like to welcome you, Commissioner Severe and Commissioner Deely, for getting here and showing great punctuality in arriving in order that we can proceed with this election roundtable. Our leaders have already kind of laid out the framework, and I'm going to ask that perhaps each of you begin by sharing your brief observations as we prepare for this upcoming election season and the election on May 18th. and subsequently how voters are to effectively prepare for it. So Commissioner Dealy?
Hi, good afternoon. I would like to take this moment, first off, to thank you all so much for the wonderful opportunity to be here and for the beautiful prayer and thoughtful words that started this meeting. One thing that I do every morning, and I know you already heard this because I remind myself of it all the time, is that I get up in the morning and I say the short prayer of Jabez, and I ask the Lord to expand my territory. And certainly with occasions such as this, the Lord does hear my prayer. So I appreciate this opportunity. We don't have a lot of time left. Unfortunately, I have a hard stop at 3:10 because I have another event. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about myself. So I'm just going to get right to it. So we know that May 19th is our primary election in the city of Philadelphia, May 18th. It is 20 days away. Now, if you think back to November, if you can go back to right before Halloween, you knew everything about the November election. You couldn't stop hearing about it. 20 days before the November election, your whole world, social media, television, radio, everywhere you went, everybody was talking about the election. That is not at all the case as we approach this primary election. It's a municipal election. It doesn't draw as much attention at all. It also doesn't draw as much money, quite frankly, which drives attention. But I would say that this municipal election is, for Philadelphians, it's really important. It matters for Philadelphians, this election. It matters that they go out and they have their vote cast and their voice heard. And I'm just going to touch briefly on two very important issues. And what it does is it connects back to the voter suppression and the intent by legislatures all around the country to do what they can to suppress the vote. And we see it right here in Pennsylvania. And unfortunately, it's coming to us in a sort of obscure fashion, but in the upcoming election, there are ballot questions that are on the ballot. There are constitutional amendments that voters are being asked to vote for that will curtail the power of the governor with regard to declarations of emergency. And we want to make sure that we have Philadelphians vote no on those two ballot questions for reasons that, first of all, we don't want to put a timeline on a disaster. Disasters make their own timeline. It's not a timeline that we can set. And certainly, even if whether you agree or disagree with the governor and how and the restrictions and whatnot with regard to the COVID-19, we do have a governor and we do have a legislature, and that is the way our government is set up. And we don't want to take the role of disaster management away from the governor and give it to the legislature, because we don't want it to be a matter which a certain party controls how we deal with a disaster. So those two ballot questions, they definitely need a no vote. I can't really emphasize enough how important it is for each of you to help spread the word on those two constitutional amendments and how much we have to vote no. And I'll tell you why. Because we can't have the legislature in Pennsylvania thinking that if they can't get their way through the legislature, they can put a constitutional ballot on the election ballot for election day. The one thing, the one line of defense that we have in Pennsylvania that prevents us from going the way of Georgia is Governor Tom Wolf and our Democratic legislatures. So we want to make sure that with a no vote on these two constitutional amendments, the entire legislative body is aware that we're paying attention, especially here in Philadelphia. And we're not going to change our constitution to the whims of party politics. and we're going to take care of ourselves in a responsible way and respect the structure of government as it stands.
Wow.
So that's it for me. And I'm going to let Governor, I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm going to let Commissioner Sabir talk. And then if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
That may be a prophetic utterance there, you know? Commissioner Sabir?
The Lord willing.
Governor, huh? Okay. Okay, Chairwoman. That's how you feeling? Okay. All right. I'm feeling that. I'd like to thank you all for allowing me to be here. You know, you got Imam Asim on this call. He watched me grow up from a young boy. So I always get nervous when I talk in front of the Imam Asim, the Amir. I feel like I'm like 5 years old. You know, he's always been very instrumental in my life, my development, even in my political career. You know, when I started trying to run for office and things, you know, he just was always just like, you know, keep going, keep going. And so I like to thank him for that. Malcolm Byrd and all the other interfaith leaders, I like to always thank you for your encouragement because when we're talking about instilling confidence in the election process, interfaith, you know, you are the faith leaders. So you play a pivotal role in people's belief. And a lot of people, they just believe that the elections are corrupt or that something's going wrong with them, you know, with no evidence. I was just down in Jackson, Mississippi. We was on a humanitarian effort down there. They didn't have any water, so we made sure that we got some water down there to them. And in my Uber ride, you know, it was election day when we delivered the water. And the Uber driver, he was like, I said, you voting? He said, no, I'm not voting. And I said, well, why are you not voting? He said, that's just something wrong with the, you know, election process. And at that time, I didn't tell him I was a election commissioner. I was just asking him questions like, you know, why do you think this? Why do you think that there's something wrong with elections? I mean, you're saying that you're not going to participate in the process. Do you have any evidence? Do you have any reasons why? He said, no. He said, I don't have any evidence whatsoever. I just believe that there's something wrong with elections. It just has to be. It's just, it's something that's not right. It just doesn't sound right. So, I mean, this is just the mindset of people. And it's been messaging that's been going on. It's been targeted messages. It's through baseless lawsuits. It's through baseless hearings by the legislator to keep that message, keep going. And so one of the things that I fall back on when I talk about voter engagement with people, and I learned this from a lot of our younger voters, well, they were always asking, what's the point? Why should I do it? What do I get from it? It was straight up. And the one response that I came back to them, which kind of made sense to me, was that the more you vote, the more you get. And the two reasons why you vote is you vote for resources for your community and accountability from elected officials. And we kept the message short. And a lot of younger people tend to go to that. You know, now a lot of older voters, you know, by older, I mean, you know, like 40 and up, I'm 41. So my age group and up, you know, all you got to do is really just, you know, remind them, hey, man, you know, don't fall asleep, man, get the vote. You know, we know why we need to vote. And they will participate. But the younger voters, they ask you questions. They know when election day is. They know when the deadlines is. But if they don't have a reason why, they're not going to participate. And one of the things that we said was the more you vote, the more you get. Resources and accountability from elected officials. And, you know, it resonated well with them. And, you know, this is an important time. We have judges on the ballot. We have city controller. We have district attorney. I mean, these positions affect the everyday quality of life for citizens. And it's very important. And we have to hammer that message home, right? We still have time. You know, if we can reach out to our family and our friends, and then we can connect with them at least 5 times, 5 contacts, then more than likely they're going to participate in the process. And a contact could be an email, it could be a text, it could be a phone call. And if we connect with those people 5 times, then they're going to participate. I mean, I know we have a certain amount of Sundays. I know we have a certain amount of Fridays going into the election. But if we kind of can, you know, put that message out there, you know, there's a reason why you do participate in the process, and that, you know, our community benefits from the participation, because the policy decisions are based off of ballot behavior. And if you have an area where your ballot behavior is not great, then the policymakers are going to ignore you. And that's just like how it works. And it's been documented. You can look at any record, you can look at anything. You know, the areas that don't participate, they receive less resources. And so I think now is our time to keep the message going. There's a lot going on still with regards with police reform. You know, voting and the judges, you know, matter. Being registered to vote and serving on the jury matters. You know, that's, you know, how you got the guilty conviction out in Minnesota. There's people that serve, you know, on jury duty. And when you get registered to vote, you know, you're actually in the mix that puts you in the jury pool to select from. So very important that we get out there. And, you know, I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for Chairwoman Daly as well, that, you know, our offices are here for you. A lot of people are giving out voting information. And when I ask the people, where did you get the voting information from? You know, somebody might say my barber's giving me the information. Somebody might say my plumber's giving me the information. But the people that know about elections are, you know, your city commissioners. You know, we have a website, PhiladelphiaVotes.com, and they can answer a lot of your questions. And if you guys have questions, you know, send us the questions, and we can make sure that we give the appropriate information to your constituents.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Sabir. We really appreciate that very thoughtful opening and sharing. Again, we'd like to invite our faith leaders who are on the line to share specific questions with our commissioners joining us this afternoon. Again, Commissioner Omar Sabir and Commissioner Lisa Daly.
Yeah, my question is just a simple one. Can we just get a statement on where we stand as far as the process of the voting? Is this going to be an all in-person voting situation? Is it going to be a hybrid? Are we back like we were pre-pandemic, or what are the early voting options that we have on the table? And I know there's a website with a lot more information, so if you can give us that website again as well, but also just a brief statement on where we are as far as the process.
Okay, so we're not going to have the satellite locations that we had in the previous election due to budget constraints. As of right now, we have 14 places where you can drop off your ballots off in person. And we also have City Hall is open as well. So people can walk right in City Hall from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. They can request their ballot. They can request a replacement ballot. They can turn in their ballot. And most importantly, you know, people can get their questions answered. We're open in the south entrance, right where Octavius Cotto is. And you can walk, like I say, right in, bring your ballot in. If you lost your ballot, you can request a replacement ballot. Or if you didn't apply for your ballot, you can still walk in right now and just request a ballot and get it done. And you can vote right there, and you get your I voted sticker, and you can walk right there. I mean, I got the addresses to the 14 locations if y'all want them.
I think that would be helpful to know, even though you're posted somewhere, correct?
It's posted somewhere, but I remember the last time when we talked, I know you said that we refer people to the website. Yes. I know you said people didn't like that. So I got the information here, but it's on PhiladelphiaVotes.com, but I can say the information if y'all want it. It's up to you. I mean, I know we got time. Okay, sure.
Yeah,
so
the 14 locations are helpful, and also what is the window? So you said they can go now, which means that it's already open and available. When does that close? Does that go all the way through Election Day, or when is the cutoff date?
Okay, right. So the last day that you can drop off your ballot is May the 18th at 8 p.m. sharp, not 8:01, not 8:02. So now if you have your completed ballot, you know, the ballots are Eagles Green, and it's 14 locations. They're under surveillance, 24-hour surveillance. Every day at 8 p.m., we come and clear the box out, you know, so your ballot is safe, you know, it's secure, you know, so that's available to May the 18th, 8 p.m.
And would you just cite some of those locations, Commissioner?
Sure. Okay, so first one, of course, is City Hall. That's the South Broad Apron. That's at 1400 JFK Boulevard, 19107. That's on the south side of City Hall. That's right on the same side where the Octavius Cotto statue is. Then there's the Riverview Place. That's on Columbus Boulevard side of the building. That's at 520 North Columbus Boulevard, 19123. And we have the Eastern State Penitentiary. That's at 2027 Fairmount Avenue, 19130. Then we have Markward Playground. That's at 400 South Taney Street, 19146. Then we have Pelbano Rec Center at 8101 Bustleton Avenue, zip code 19152. We have the Ford Powell Rec Center at 609 Snyder Avenue, 19148. We have Smith Playground at 2100 South 24th Street, 19145. We have Vogt, VOGT Rec Center at 4131 Unruh Avenue, 19135, and that's spelled UNRUH Ave, 19135. We have the Independence Branch Library at 18 South 7th Street, 19106. We have Dorothy Manual Rec Center at 8500 Pickering Street, 19150. We have Pleasant Playground, 305 Slocum Street, 19119. We have Schisler at 1800 Blair Street, 19125. We have Chalfont Playground, 438 Dare Path Lane, 19154. And then we have Stinton Playground, 4600 North 16th Street, 19140.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Are there other questions for either Commissioner Sabir or Commissioner Deely?
Can I just ask, what was the process to select those 14 sites?
So,
Go ahead, Chairwoman.
okay. As you know, last in November, we hosted several satellite locations and drop boxes. So the drop boxes that we had up in November, they're the same boxes. We didn't take them down. So we just opened up the same boxes that we had the last time.
Okay, but there were more in November, right?
Well, in November, we had the boxes in addition to the satellite offices. We were able to do all that with that $10 million grant that we had. We didn't get that for this election.
Okay, all right. Yeah, my concern is that there don't appear to be too many that are servicing North Philadelphia. There's one or two that are technically in North Philadelphia, like the Eastern Penitentiary. But you know, in addition to being a denominational leader, I pastor a church in North Philadelphia, and some of the most underserved zip codes are not represented in those 14 areas that were listed. So I'm just wondering, what is the process to to address that maybe before. I know we can't do it for May, but maybe as we look toward November, maybe we could explore an opportunity to open up additional sites.
Oh, absolutely, and certainly that is what we aim to do. We have 40 boxes. We just don't have the budget or the resources to be able to do it. We are, we have put our budget request in to the city, and we are going to go plead our case to the council, and hopefully they will fully fund our request. In the meantime, we are going to offer. Commissioner Sabir put forth a motion last week at the commissioners meeting to allow us to have mobile drop-off locations, which will help fill in the gaps of a lot of areas in the city. As you can imagine, if we have 14 boxes, 2 of them are at our offices, so that leaves only 12 throughout the city, and we know 12 boxes. There's a lot of areas of the city that are not being satisfied with a 24-hour drop box. So we're going to have mobile ballot drop-off locations that will be announced in the immediate days, so that folks can feel confident just bringing their voted ballot to a staffer at a mobile drop-off location, and they don't have to worry about putting that ballot in the mail.
Commissioner, would you just explain a little more detail what you mean by mobile ballot drop-offs? Does this mean that there will be temporary locations where people can drop off ballots around the city?
Yes, exactly. We will announce a schedule similar to as we did in June and in November, where staff will be stood up for a couple hours on the weekends at various locations throughout the city for people come and drive by and drop off their voted ballot safely and securely.
Other questions for either Commissioner Dealy or Commissioner Sabir?
Yeah, my other question, thank you for addressing the drop-off and remote options. Can we just talk about the in-person sites, the traditional ballot locations of how many of those will be in operation? What changes will we see from a typical pre-pandemic year, but more specifically since November? Any changes? Because I know my church is an election site, and I know we were approached to add 2 additional districts at our site, which likely means that there's another site that's not available. I wonder, is that something that's common around the city? Is there a drastic reduction, or is it going to be similar to what was in November?
It is going to be as close to November as possible. There's no consolidation like we saw in June. And basically, we have some refusals. People after November, for whatever reason, they refused us, so we had to find other options, or sometimes properties there's a change in ownership. So I wouldn't say we have our typical amount of circumstantial changes that we would see in the course of a normal election.
Thanks.
And and in all those divisions where there is a change from November to the May primary, those voters will get a postcard in the mail that will tell them that their polling place has been changed and where they go for May.
Is there, I don't know, I know, having hosted as an election site for years, I know that there are legal guidelines to signage and things like that are very strict when it comes to election sites. I wonder, is there any law or even internal practice to the commissioner's office that governs the former site? Meaning, there's always signage that's put up on the sites that are active, but I don't know what happens when a site closes. I know a postcard gets sent, but I don't know about signage that happens in person. And last year, in May or June when we had the first primary early on in the pandemic, there were people who likely got a postcard but probably missed it in the mail and still, throughout the day came to our church looking to vote. And we had to have, somebody from the church telling them where the alternate site was. Is there just a practice for the day of putting signage in the when a site moves in addition?
There are signs posted at the former location, which tells the voter where the new location is. Quite honestly, the issue for us in June was that we were moving large numbers of divisions from all different places into one, which caused its own kind of confusion. And we didn't have the ability to train our poll workers. I mean, June was our miracle election. Yeah. But in a typical normal course of events, yes, there's a sign that's posted at the former location in case anybody goes there out of habit, as they will on election day. The sign will tell them where they can go in May.
Okay, thank you.
And then also, so I'd like to add that we have a feature on our website, and we'll be encouraging people to do it. Maybe you can encourage your congregation that, they can go to our website. You can type your name and your address in, and then it'll tell you where your polling location is. And you could do this, from the comfort of your own phone. So if you can log in to Facebook, you could just go to PhiladelphiaVotes.com. You can type your name and your address in, and then it'll pop up and search and let you know where your current polling location is.
Okay. We have other questions for Commissioner Dealy or Commissioner Sabir, and we want to be mindful that Commissioner Dealy has a hard stop at about 10 after. Well, let me ask a question, if you don't mind. What are the lessons learned as commissioners, as election officials from last year's election experience, and how does that lesson learned serve you well during this election?
Chairwoman, you want to go answer that one? Where you go?
Thank you. I would say for me, one of the biggest lessons that I learned was that we need to do more events just like this out in the community, out with the faith leaders. As Commissioner Sabir pointed out, voters are confused. They have a lot of distrust. They've been fed a well-funded, vigorous campaign of misinformation. And it's incumbent upon all of us as community leaders to do all that we can to just keep saying the truth, keep giving voters factual, truthful information about elections, because together we share the responsibility of restoring confidence in this process. It has taken an unnecessary, unfair hit this past year. And I am committed, and I know my colleagues both are, committed to just continuing to be in forums just like this, churches, on altars, in playgrounds, wherever we need to be, we will be, because people listen to their elected officials, they listen to their faith leaders, and we appreciate the ability and the willingness for all of you to come together with us to make sure that it's truthful information that our voters are hearing on a nonstop basis, and not this awful misinformation that they had been fed for over a year. And I thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Commissioner Sabir, would you like to add to the observations of Commissioner Dealy?
Yeah, I mean, like one of the lessons that I learned, when I first, took this job, it was like, okay, we understood, like Octavius Cotto in 1871, he was murdered on election day, trying to get African Americans to vote and organize. And it just really showed me really where America hasn't really moved too far, because all of the commissioners' lives were threatened, you know, and it was more than just threats. You know, it was Humvee, you know, these guys were arrested. They had the guns. They said they was going to come up here to straighten some stuff out. I mean, so it's been documented, and it just really showed me where we at. But it also showed us too the resilience of the community and everyone wanting to do the right thing. And so, you know, to combat, you know, this voter suppression, to this misinformation that's happening, because that's how voter suppression works in 2021. It's not, you know, people really, you know, burning crosses in front of your house, but it's about just giving out misinformation to get people to not want to participate in the process. So I'm really calling on the matriarchs, the patriarchs of the family, because they have influence, right? And even when y'all going through your church membership basis, if y'all doing phone banking and y'all calling, and if people hear someone that they know, someone that they trust, telling them and reminding them to go participate in the election process, they're going to participate in the process. And again, it was a well-funded campaign. We saw all kind of information. We saw fake social media profiles made where they had, quite frankly, they had fake profiles of African Americans on social media, you know, telling people not to vote, to, you know, withhold back your vote. But when you look back to who was actually on those profiles, they were fake profiles. I mean, they came up with all kind of sophisticated digital targeted messaging and really aimed at voters 18 to 35. So when I talk about the matrix and the patriarchs of the family, that's the uncles, that's the fathers, that's the people that are at the top of their family. You know, if we carved out some time for about an hour or two to get them to do phone banking, texting, and then do the follow-ups. And I'm talking about, you had, you know, call sheets and everything. And then, you know, we went down and we saw who wanted to vote. Are you likely to vote? And ask those questions. You know, most of the time, you know, people have questions about logistics. You know, am I still registered? You know, where's my phone location at? You know, once you can answer those questions, say, oh, wait a minute. We go to PhiladelphiaVotes.com, like literally we can type that stuff in and we can find out where your phone location is. Once we give them that information back, you know, it's about 70% chance that they're going to participate. You know, we just got to keep on pushing them. And my father, God rest his soul, every election day, when he went to go vote, the committee people that was at the phone location would let him know who in our house voted, who they voted. They said, I didn't see your son, I didn't see your sister, I didn't see them. And then, you know, at 12 o'clock, we got a phone call from my dad, and I'm a grown man. But you didn't want to be on the wrong side of the call. Because he'd be like, hey, man, what's up? The people didn't see you, man, what's up? You know, and I'd be like, man, Dad, you know what I mean? I'm going to go do it, right? And so that's what we really have to get back to, the things that we used to do in the past. And those things, believe it or not, you know, they still work. You know, if you get a text from your grandma saying, hey, man, you know, you planning on voting next week? You know, how can I make it easier for you to vote? You know, do you need a ride? Once you start asking those questions to people, more than likely they're going to do it. We just got to follow up, and then we can come back, you know, even after the election, then we can evaluate, okay, who's voting, who's not voting. And we have to keep the conversation going all year long. Sometimes we, you know, every 6 months, you know, when they get close to election, we come back and we say, oh, time to vote. But no, we have to keep this constantly ongoing in our community, right? And then when we get the wins in our community, like when a playground gets broken in our community, when good things happen in our community, we can say, hey, you know, this is the result, you know, of politics. It's the reason why you vote. And guess what? If y'all vote more, guess what? We can get more playgrounds. We can get more improvements to our schools. So it's a constant conversation going on. My office, I've been doing extensive research on this. If y'all want some scripts, I can send y'all the scripts too. And then like some of like the schedules, like how to do like some of those engagement tactics. But I mean, it works. It works. I mean, because the number one reason why someone is going to participate in the process is if you ask them to vote. It's number one reason. That's all the research. Is if someone asks you, if you ever look at all the commercials, they say, I'm asking you to vote for me. But if you constantly ask them, they're going to do it. It's just a matter of just getting it done.
That's very, very helpful. Commissioner, and I think others may have an interest in knowing this too. Can you speak to what's happening with HR 1, the legislation in the House and Senate, and what that essentially is and what's it intended to do?
Okay, so with HR 1, right now, it just got to committee. So it got approved to go to committee. After it get passed through committee, then to be able to go on to the floor up for a vote, and then pass through the Senate, and then if President Biden signed it, it'll be a universal change. It'll be one of those Lyndon B. Johnson Voting Rights Act sort of things that's going to allow access to everybody. So out of those 43 states that are planning all of this voter suppression, HR 1 will alleviate all of that and make it a federal standard across the United States, which will give access to everybody. And it's a group, the Transformative Justice, ACLU, a few of those groups. They're actually coming to Philadelphia on May the 8th, and we're doing a border cake, you know, we're going around, but it's a whole system, and I can share that information with y'all. And if y'all want to be a part of that group, then you can, you'll be a part, like, and you'll be like on the know. So they work down in DC and they tell us every update that's happening as it's going. But right now, it just got to committee. So if it comes out of committee, then it'll go on the floor for a vote.
So it'll essentially protect voters against suppression efforts across the country, despite some various state legislative actions?
It'll nullify everything, and then it'll be a universal act. So if that goes through, you know, it'll be the greatest thing since Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Bill.
Is that something that, does it require a supermajority, or will a simple majority in the Senate do the trick? Do you know those things?
It's some kind of, they working it all out. I mean, they kind of go, there's some kind of thing with the parliamentary procedures and all that. I don't know how that works, but they're working on it. But I know it's probably more likely it's going to come out of the House. And after it come out of the House, it'll be up to the Senate. It's something that Vice President Kamala Harris can do. There's certain rules that they can work it all out and they can figure it out. And then it's this guy, the Senator Joe Manchin in West Virginia. You know, he's like this, you know, that's a long story. You know, I don't want to get to that on this call, but that guy, but I think it can work. I really do. I think it can work if everybody just really want to keep the pressure going on. You know, it might require us to go down to DC, get some buses, protest to keep the pressure on to get that done.
All right. With an appreciation of stewarding your time well, I want to ask again, are there any final questions for Commissioner Sabir from our faith leaders?
I don't have a question. I have a word of gratitude and thanks. As I was saying to Commissioner Sabir in the chat, you know, he is so on point. It is an ongoing conversation within our community that happens not only with the faith leaders, but you're right, with the matriarchs and patriarchs. And, you know, who sits on our pew? Come on, Dr. Wright. Who sits on our pews? You know, and so we get to talk to mama and them so that they can get the word out. And so we need to continue to do that. And also let them know that they have power. You know, the power is in the vote. You're right. That playground on that corner came because you showed up. And to let them know when they show up, change happens. And, you know, like if we have to, you know, grab a few of them by the hand and put them on a bus so that they can have that experience of standing up for something that makes a difference in their community, then let us have at it. You know, let us have at it. You know, actions speak louder than words. So if we can show up and say, hey, this is what's going to impact our future as well as our present, then, you know, again, I just thank you for your words. I thank you for sharing that. And I am one who would like to have the script so that we can have those ongoing conversations.
Absolutely. And I think I speak for all of our faith leaders on the line and those who are not here. And that is, we appreciate you, Commissioner Sabir and Commissioner Dealy, and Commissioner Smith for all that you've done to secure the election last year and to continue to assure that we have optimal access for our polling sites this year, and that you're continuing to struggle against any voter suppression efforts, both locally and in the state and nationally. And we salute you and thank you for such leadership.
Amen.
If there are no other questions, I'd like to thank the commissioner for remaining and answering forthrightly all of our questions and providing very helpful and useful information. And I want to thank you faith leaders who adjusted your schedule to be with us today. We regret the technological difficulties. I think it's on the end of Facebook, but we have recorded this session, so we do intend to post it and to share it with you in order that it can reach our constituencies. Again, thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. And if there are no other questions or comments, we bid you farewell.
Reverend, if I may.
Yes, sir.
If I may, May the 7th, we are having a blood drive. We're trying to get blood donations. And it's really in support of sickle cell anemia. And the Red Cross have reached out to me, and, you know, as you know, sickle cell disproportionately affects the African-American community. Mm-hmm. And, you know, through the pandemic, people are not giving blood. And so on May the 7th, we're having a blood donation. We fit the link in the chat. And, you know, our office can even forward you over, like I said, another email. But we definitely want to try to get as many people as we can get to donate blood on May the 7th. It's going to be at the Pennsylvania Convention Center. We're partnered up with the Red Terminal. You know, they give you a discount to some food if you donate blood. But it's and you get like other incentives as well from the Red Cross. But they are in dire need of blood for sickle cell.
We hear you loud and clear. And I know that faith leaders who can will support such an effort. Again, thank you for sharing. Anything that you send to us, we will be diligent in sharing it with those whom we provide support for.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you to our faith leaders, Bishop Davenport, Rabbi Levin, Dr. Wright, Amir Rashid Abdul, and others whom are on the line that we're not able to see visibly. Again, we will post this session on Facebook, on Forum Philly's Facebook page. We believe that whatever the difficulties are, they're easily remedied, and we'll try to get this on as expeditiously as we can. And again, thank you all for your cooperation and support.
Thank you.
Okay.